speak later.
Try this one, Chair.
Good evening, members. I apologise for the bing bongs, but we do like to get carried away. Good evening, members, and welcome to this extraordinary meeting of the full council. I am Councillor Lynn Walters, Chairman of this council, and I will be chairing this meeting this evening. Before we start the business, I can confirm that we are not expecting... Oh, I beg your pardon. First of all, we are being webcast via the council's YouTube channel, and please can everyone in the chamber ensure that their mobile phones and devices are switched to silent to avoid any disruption. Please also note that we are not expecting any fire alarms this evening. However, in the event of an alarm, please leave via the fire exit and assemble in the car park. This meeting is scheduled for 3 hours. I would be grateful if speeches are kept to the issue considered and are concise. I will now proceed to the first item of the business, agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies from 5 councillors, Dennis Abram, councillors Mark Ott, Councillor Martin Green, Councillor Shirley Mason and Councillor Sindhu Rajiv. Are there any further apologies? Councillor Van Dorken.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Peter Schweer sent his apologies. Something
Thank you.
has occurred that he couldn't make it.
Thank you. Right, thank you, members. We will now proceed to agenda number 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests or non-registrable interests that they wish to declare this evening? If so, please state the item and the nature of your interest. Thank you, members. There are no more declarations.
Councillor Bowes-Flynn would like to indicate an interest, please.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes.
Madam Chairman, just for transparency, I'd like to declare that I am a county councillor as well.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes-Flint. Okay, thank you, members. There are no more declarations.
Chairman, there's a few county councillors who are now indicated, so we will mark you as your declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Members, we are being asked to approve the minutes of the meeting of the full council held on the 24th of February, which has been circulated to all members and published on the council's website. Please, can I have a proposer to approve the minutes as an accurate record? Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And I'm now seeking a seconder.
Councillor Holland.
Councillor Tom Cunningham, thank you. The minutes have been moved and seconded as an accurate record. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you, members. Are members against this decision? No. Any abstentions? Thank you. The minutes have been approved. I will now sign the minutes as accurate. Members, we have no registered speakers this evening, so if I will proceed to agenda item 5, announcements from the chairman. That is me. It's been a long day. Thank you, members. This evening I am delighted to formally celebrate the wonderful news that Councillor Jackie Pell was recognised in the King's New Year's Honours List. Here. Councillor Pell was not with us at our last council meeting in February, and therefore this is the first opportunity for us to celebrate this prestigious award, acknowledging Councillor Pell's unwavering service, absolutely unwavering service, to this local government and her community. Thank you. Councillor Pell has been awarded the Medalist in Order of the British Empire Services to local government and to her much-loved community of Halstead. Councillor Pell has given 5 decades of her time, energy and experience to the people of Halstead. As District Councillor, leader of the Halstead Residents Association and chairman of Halstead Town Council, consistently, continuously exceeded her role and responsibility by representing the people of Halstead, fighting their corner and resolving their problems. Having been born and raised in the town, her dedication to the community of Halstead means she is known locally as Mrs. Halstead. Miss Councillor Pell has served as a district councillor for 38 years and 43 years as a town councillor. During which time she has been the Mayor of Halstead and the Vice Chairman and Chairman of this council. In addition to her role as councillor, she has played an active role in a number of organisations, including the League of Friends of Halstead Hospital, Travel Aid for Parents of Sick Children, Halstead Day Centre, MenCap Braintree, Halstead Public Gardens Management Committee, to name just a few. If that wasn't enough, Councillor Pell also organises numerous coach trips for each year for the elderly to tackle loneliness and isolation, and has done this for the past 40 years. Councillor Pell, it is my honour to offer you the warmest congratulations of your award for the British Empire Medal. Councillor Pell, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, councillors, officers. I couldn't have done this without all of you. Over the years, different councillors have come and councillors have gone. And this particular council has always been very good to me, very kind. People from all parties have always been very welcoming. And I have represented what you're all doing now. So I'm doing no more than what all of you do. So in some ways you could say that what I've got is all yours too. You know, so I am very, very grateful, and I was very touched. And it came at a time when I was really low. And it sort of boosted me up. And the letters I'm keeping, had a lovely one from Justin. I couldn't believe how people have been so kind to me, but particularly this council. But then they have always been very kind, have a good governance role, HR role, how they look after you. I can't speak highly enough of Braintree District Council. I know people moan about it, but they've got no reason to. And I thank all of you, and I hope it isn't too long for some of you get something as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pell. You're an amazing lady. I will now proceed to item 6 of the agenda, a Greater Essex Devolution Priority Programme. Members, the report for this item was circulated separately to the agenda. Please can I give Councillor Graham Butland, Leader of the Council, to present the report and move the recommendations. Councillor Butland.
I will formally move the recommendations, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Butland has moved the recommendations as set out on the report. Please can I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Can I formally second and reserve the right to speak later in the debate?
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. I will now invite Councillor Butland to speak on this matter. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is one of many similar meetings that are taking place across the whole of Essex over the couple of weeks now, leading up to the 21st of March. I am formally moving the recommendations that are on paragraph 2.1 of the report. The background to this is I'm not going to go into all the details. Members have had the reports, they've had the letters which have been sent to me by ministers, etc. It goes back to the publication of the government's white paper on local government reform in December and the decision by the three upper tier authorities in Essex, that's the two unitary authorities and the county council, together with the district and city and borough councils, to go forward or attempt to go forward on the devolution and local government reform at an early stage, believing that to be in the best interests of the whole county. As a result, Essex has been chosen by the government of one of 7 areas that are going forward. I think something like 20 applied, 7 have been chosen. The situation now is that the government, and as I say, you do have most of the papers relating to this in front of you tonight, have asked that an interim plan is submitted to ministers by the 21st of March, with final proposals in by the 26th of September. So what are we being asked to agree this evening? We're merely being asked to endorse the approach and direction of the discussions on developing plans as set out in Appendix B. We're not being asked as to how many unitaries there should be, what the number of councillors might be, or anything like that. That is a whole amount of work which still needs to be done. The appendix that you have before you, you will see bears the name of all 15 leaders in Essex. It's not been easy to get a document together that all 15 could sign up to, and there are bits within that which some people will like more than others. And of course the big difference is you will see that 10 authorities have signed up to a preference for 5 unitary authorities, and 5 authorities, or 5 leaders I should say, of which I am one, have not at this moment signed up to any number. And the reason I haven't done that is twofold. One, because I want to hear what members of this council feel are important issues, but also, secondly, I believe there's a whole amount of work that needs to be done in terms of obtaining the information and the evidence to go forward to government with whether there should be 1, 2, 3, 97 or whatever that we have got to do that work. But we have agreed as 15 leaders, and we're a pretty eclectic bunch. I mean, there are 3 Labour leaders, 4 Lib Dems, 2 resident associations, 2 independents, 4 Conservatives, and just for a bit of icing on the cake, the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. So I think we've done pretty well to get one document there. There are a lot of issues that are raised within that document, and clearly there is still a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. At this stage, what we have set out is in response to the request from government of what they would want to see in that interim document. How we're working, how we're consulting, and you will see within the paper that we have engaged with business, with the National Association of Local Councils, with a number of organisations, business organisations as well, as part of the process. We will now need, if this, with this going forward to government, to work on the detail, which will need to be submitted, as I say, Madam Chairman, by the 26th of September. So that means a lot of work to be done, working on issues like what are the financial implications? How do we want the new organisations to relate to their communities? The whole issue of economic corridors, what makes sense to put certain neighbouring districts or areas together to be able to come to a sensible decision on what the number of unitaries should be. And there will be differing demands as well. I mean, we know that within Braintree we talk very often about the urban and rural, but if you then start to add the needs of the coastal communities around, which is something quite different, there are a lot of issues that will need to be talked through. And I suspect when we've got all the evidence, the way in which it's interpreted will vary from district to district. Different weighting will be given by different districts. Now, it would be ideal if what we put forward to government in September was a unified view of how many unitaries there should be. But as you see within the papers from the Minister, he is prepared to consider a number, hopefully not too many. I would hate to see us as Essex go forward with 15 different varieties, but there may be some differences over particularly the number of unitary authorities. But whatever goes forward must be justified by the evidence before us. Now, I said there's a lot of work, and there is a lot of work to be done, and I want, first of all, to pay tribute to the amount of work that has already been done collectively by our staff here and also by staff across the other 14 authorities who have worked together to get us to the stage which we are. And I think I will just single out, when you have a document to write, it's no good having 15 of you around the table trying to do it. And I do thank Ian Davidson, the CEO of Tendring, for actually doing the legwork in getting the first document together and circulating it around to an extent that this document, I believe I'm right in saying, has gone to, if not all, certainly nearly every council of the 15 councils. So quite a unified approach there. But it is going to mean significant work to be done in quite a short period of time, whilst at the same time ensuring that we continue to provide the statutory services and services that we need to provide. We can't just say to the public, well, we're shutting up shop while we look at our navels for the next 6 months. We will need to do that. And we will need to be willing to work cross boundaries. And I think there's excellent evidence at the moment that that is happening, where we're prepared to share expertise across boundaries to be able to get that done. Now, it's not just what government is asking of us. You will see in the paper that we are suggesting, the response that we are suggesting goes to government, in section 6, we have outlined what we would want to see government supply to us. I'm not going to go through all the items, there's 11 of them there, but actually we've set out what we think would be necessary in what will probably be one of the most complex devolution, local government reform situations in the country. Why is it complex? Well, first of all, clearly we have 2 unitaries and a county council. We are one of the largest areas, 1.8 million population. There is talk about linking and working closely with the health service. Well, we are one of the few areas in the country where, unfortunately, we do not have coterminosity with our independent health boards. In fact, we have 3 health boards, which cross the boundaries into Suffolk and into Hertfordshire. So there will be a significant amount of work that will need to be done. And that is, we think, going to cost some significant sums of money. We put a figure in the papers, you will see, of between £5 and £7.5 million. And we are asking government to fund it. This is a government requirement as part of their plan to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of local government. We're very happy to go with it, but also we do need support from local government on that way, in doing that. Now, members will have many questions, and I know from the members' evenings briefing meetings that we've had, you know, some of you may wish to raise those issues tonight. We won't have the answers because in many cases we won't know the answers of that. Only those in Whitehall will be giving those answers. One thing I just do want to mention, though, because it has been raised on a couple of occasions with me, etc., at this stage, parish and town councils are not affected in any way by these proposals. So if we move to a situation of unitary authorities coming in, and the timetable is within the papers there, probably with a mayoral election in 26 and the new unitary elections in 27, with a vesting date for those authorities of the 1st of April 28, that will not affect parish and town councils, although I think once they are established, they will want to be involved as to the relationship between parish and town levels and also those areas which are non-parished with the new unitary authorities. But at this stage, they're not directly involved, but we are making sure that they, both through the National Association of Local Councils and also the Essex Association of Local Councils, ensuring that they know exactly what is going on. So, Madam Chairman, I am looking forward tonight to hearing the views of members. We have to, or I have to as a leader, go back and see whether I can confirm my name remaining on the list of signatories on the appendix, the return to go back to government. What I would say is I would hope that the council would support that. There will be a need, I believe, later in the year as we get towards the 26th of September and we know what the final submission is going to be. I personally think that we should have another full council at that stage before we finally send anything in, because at that stage there'll be something really, you know, quite hard. Whether, as I say, we will all be on the same page or whether there might be some alternative arrangements. This is the first real major change to local government for 50 years. I suspect Councillor Pell might be the only one here who was around when Braintree Urban and a few other councils.
Just after.
Just after, right.
Councillor Binking may well have been.
No one wants to own up to being old enough to do it. But actually, you know, it is 50 years since that has happened. So this is a major change to local government. Local government has remained has had less reorganisations than the National Health Service has had, and of course the National Health Service is about to have another one. One thing I want to say, and it occurred to me today, you know, that for many people in NHS England, the first they will have heard about their jobs was at the end of a Prime Minister's speech today. I don't think that's a good way of hearing that your job may be in danger. And I am absolutely committed that we will keep our staff here and the staff in other authorities well informed about what is going on. Because clearly there will be less councillors in the new organisation. And some of us thought we were going to be able to retire in a few weeks' time, and now we find we're going to be there for a little while longer with the county council elections postponed. But for the number of councillors, probably cut in half, I would think, in terms of the whole of the county, between county and district, to the new unitaries. But for staff, they will have concerns about where they're going to be, how's the mortgage going to be paid, all of that. And I think there's a real duty on us as elected members to ensure that we keep our staff fully informed about what is going on. And I know Dan and his team have taken that very much to heart. But no matter how much you take it to heart, it's still worrying if you're one of those members of staff. So, but I do give them that assurance that we will do that. So, Madam Chairman, I move the recommendations in 2.1. I look forward to hearing the views of colleagues in what is really quite a start of quite a momentous occasion, I think, in terms of the future of local government. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Do any members wish to speak on this item? If so, please indicate by raising your hand, and please keep your hand raised until you've been acknowledged by the monitoring officer. Thank you. Thank you, members. I will start this evening's debate with Councillor Prime. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I speak this evening on an issue that worries me, should worry you and the residents of Essex, and that is money. We are being forced into LGR and devolution by this government. As you know, we will have a mayor next year, and then we have a shadow unitary for a couple of years, and then full unitary after that. Who's going to pay for it? Already, 84% of our council tax goes to Essex County Council and the Police and Fire Commissioner. Will they give up a percentage to fund the mayoral office? No, they won't. It's going to be down to the taxpayers again. We haven't had a vote on it. It's being forced on us. If there was a vote on tonight, whether we had a mayor or unitaries, I would vote against it. I think there's enough money goes into local government from the hard-working taxpayers. As there's not going to be a vote, I hope that this other extra layer of government will be cost neutral to all residents of Essex. I'm not going to hold my breath because it will be a long time before it becomes that. That is my statement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Prime. May I call upon Councillor Beavis?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I wanted to thank the leader for calling the extraordinary meeting this evening. And the leader spoke earlier on about this is consistent with authorities around Essex, whether it's an extraordinary meeting or a motion, which is going to be set down as well. But of course, that's not just across Essex, that's across the entire country. And as we speak this evening, many of our district councillor colleagues are settling down this evening to a nice meal in Windsor because it's the DCN conference. I'll be there tomorrow, and we know exactly what everybody is going to be talking about. So I just wanted to say I'm not aware in my 22 years I've ever attended an extraordinary meeting before. I can't think I have, looking back. So I think it is a momentous evening this evening. Our group have discussed and considered the options at some length for some time. And I was going to make some comments on behalf of our group. In no specific order, and other members of the group, I'm sure, will just want to drill down into some of the detail. We appreciate that the Greater Essex leaders and chief execs have been meeting, and there are conversations around whether we're going to be 1 or 5 unitary councils. And the leader spoke this evening, in fact he spoke last week at our training about evidence. And I'm really interested to know where is the evidence, who's got it, and when are we going to get the evidence? to suggest it's going to be, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5. Many members, in fact, I was only talking to the leader of Essex at a conference last week, and he was talking to me about the tax base. It's all about the tax base, Joe, as to what size of authority we're going to be. I appreciate that the submission will be going in on the 21st, and after tonight's meeting, I'm not clear yet whether there's going to be a revision on that, and if there is, are we going to be seeing that before it's finally submitted on the 21st? In our group, we spoke about some of the liabilities for this. We spoke about the finances at Thurrock. We actually spoke about the £25 million a year of incinerator costs, and is that going to go across all authorities? It was a question. What's going to happen to the local plan? Are some of those functions going to be with the mayor? Are some going to be with the new unitary authorities? What about things like Section 106 agreements? Are they still going to be channelled to where they should be? Funding that goes into Wethersfield, place-based funding is really what I'm talking about. The group spoke about the cost of adult social care. It's something that many councils are talking about across the country. I'm not convinced, actually, and I had the privilege to work in children's services at Essex for over a year, and quite an intense time. And I'm not actually sure that that service should be split up. And is there some way that it could be an integrated service across all the authorities? The hubs are already there. What about us as a district? Our district, our legacy, what the Courtauds left us, they were left to us as a district. And I'm not suggesting at one moment we're about to sell the family silver, but when you think about Warner and Courtauld, that is our identity, and it's something that I'm jolly proud about. We spoke about contracts and services. We spoke about leisure, waste, recycling, street scene, our housing stock, third sector grants, community transport, the housing register, planning enforcement, civic and licensing. In the paper that we received, it specifically said to ensure that the new councils continue to reflect the identity and communities of its residents, to support a sense of control, agency and trust in local government. That says to me that actually under the new local government reorganisation deal, we are actually thinking about place. And when we think about place and partners and stakeholders and influencers, who are they? I think about the ICB, the Integrated Care Board, our health profile, the police service, planning, the third sector, the Association of Local Councils, the Rural Community Council of Essex, the High Sheriff Community Agents, the Highways Panel, the Health and Wellbeing Board, and the Community Safety Partnerships. I think it's also really important to be proud and talk about our successes, particularly over the last 15 years. When I think about Live Well, Green Hearts, our commercialisation strategy, our current asset strategy, our corporate priorities, communities, prosperity, fit for the future and the environment. I think we should also think about the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge and where do we go from here? I'm proud of our economy, our growth and our regeneration, and we shouldn't lose that. But we have huge congestion in our district, and it's a top issue for our residents. The A120, the A12 and the Houston bypass, we shouldn't forget about these.
Councillor Beavis, will you be much longer, ma'am? You've been speaking for quite some time now.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I will just quickly wind up just with a couple of recommendations, if I may. Picking up on the point that the leader made about maybe an additional meeting, I think it would be really pertinent maybe to have additional meetings of the cross-party leaders as we go through the next couple of months. Talking about the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge, the LGA have extended an offer to support councils through the local government reorganisation, and I think it's something that we should be looking at. You've also mentioned about the town and parish councils. Will there be elections in 2027? And throughout all of this, I don't think that we should forget who we are ultimately, this is about our people, our places and our communities. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beavis. May I call upon Councillor Edwards?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Before I begin, I'd like to extend my thanks to the leader for the way in which he is conducting the process of local government reorganisation by not putting his name to this document before consulting this full council and members having the chance to put their views on the record this evening. I'd also like to say that I hope I make Councillor Abbott happy tonight, because I'm going to try and deliver a speech that is relatively apolitical, which will be a bit of a first for me, and I hope it goes well. I'd like to make 2 points, if possible, Madam Chair. The first, on how we keep any costs from this reorganisation low. A key part of how we in this chamber are selling the benefits of reorganisation to our residents is that this will streamline local government and make service delivery more cost efficient. If we end up delivering a system in 2028 that costs the council taxpayer in Braintree District disproportionately more than what they pay now, what will have been the point of doing this? I am pleased, therefore, that Essex leaders in this document have made clear that they will seek funding from central government to cover the initial estimate of £5 to £7 million required to reorganise local government, with the concession this is likely well below the true figure. This is a matter of fairness. For many years, under administrations of various political stripes, residents in this district have paid their council tax to an authority that has respected them, which hasn't gambled on huge, risky investments, incurring debts in the process. To turn around to them now and say that they must pay for the failings of others would be galling. Part 6, Section 9 of the Leader's Ask to Central Government in this document references council tax equalisation. Having not fully grasped what this meant at first, I went away and did some research. For the benefit of colleagues, the 25-26 council tax precepts for a bandy property of Colchester City Council is £224.44, for Braintree with £206.01, and for Tendring £199.52. I'm grateful to the Cabinet Member for Finance, Resources and Performance, who has, as per usual, gone out of his way to clarify some of my concerns relating to council tax equalisation, particularly where that might mean that might see Braintree Council taxpayers paying more. He has assured me that each council remains sovereign in its budget setting until vesting day for the new authority, that being on the 31st of March 2028. No decisions about equalising council tax will be forced upon this authority. I appreciate there is a local government finance review coming up later this year, and that in an increasingly unstable world, events can be difficult to predict, but I would urge him, in this new context, to continue our policy of keeping council tax as low as possible. I take no particular view on whether 4 or 5 authorities is best for Essex. My plea to whomever makes this decision is this: make the choice on the basis of delivering the highest quality services at the lowest possible cost to our residents, whilst ensuring that these authorities can be truly representative of the places they represent. This leads me to my second and final point. We must ensure that this council attracts good people, and in particular, good elected members. Many in this chamber will view vesting day for the new authority as a chance for a fresh start. As part of this, the new authority should be attractive to everyone from all backgrounds. If this authority is to be one that meets during working hours, then it must offer opportunities and compensation attractive enough for someone in the middle of their career to take a career break. If this is an evening council, it must be flexible to accommodate those in full-time employment or education. If this is not properly considered, ultimately it is our residents that will suffer as a result of maladministration, and the opportunity for this fresh start will be lost. In closing, Madam Chair, I'll admit, if I were to boil it down to a single reason as to why I stood for election, it is to keep council tax as low as possible. I'm sure there will be other opportunities to debate this process in the coming months, but for now I will leave colleagues with this. It is my belief that if reorganisation delivers a disproportionately higher tax burden on our residents, that we will have been deemed to have failed in this process, and that they will show their fury at the ballot box. But if we can get this right, we can deliver a brighter future for residents here in Braintree with a simplified local government delivering cost-efficient services, all whilst, yes, Madam Chair, keeping council tax low. I will be voting in favour of the report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if this is controversial, but I think this process, in fact, is not fundamentally about structures, and I hope many might agree that it shouldn't be. Surely our main concern, as others have just said, is about how do we best represent our people and our places. In my own remarks, I'm going to be quite clear, but I hope it's going to be based on evidence of this process, or at least how I see it. I strongly endorse the comments by Councillor George Prime, and thank you for your robustness. I find myself largely in agreement with Councillor Edwards. I think you've achieved your objective of being non-partisan, and I look forward to the moment when you extend your logic by crossing the floor. Coming to the matters at hand, I do genuinely feel there's a bit of an unholy alliance here between a Labour government nationally in some difficulty and a Conservative influenced or dominated perhaps county council not rushing, shall we say, to face electors this May. Labour claims this proposal is based on devolution, and I can see why they say that in terms of the functions of the elected mayor. But how is it devolution when we take away across our great county the primary council dealing with all functions? So you could actually say that it's as much centralisation as devolution. As others have said, and I'd put it slightly differently, I don't think anybody has asked for this. I know we're having a discussion tonight, but there's not going to be a vote. There's not going to be questions. So I don't think we've had any meaningful consultation, either with voters or local councillors. In effect, I think it's a fait accompli. We've been told, including at the recent members' evening, and I can understand the logic of it, but I don't agree with it, that basically it's a done deal, and if we want to have any say, we need to get on board. So to come towards the end, does anybody actually want an elected mayor? Does anybody think that a super council of roughly 500,000 people, inevitably is going to be more remote from our people and our communities? An LGIU survey quoted at length in The Guardian last week, and I can share it with anybody who hasn't seen it, and these are some of the less strong adjectives they used, said it's bizarre and ill thought through. They estimated, and this is in contrast to the figures that Graham and others have mentioned, and I know this is an average, but they estimated a cost of some 16 million for any affected local authority area. And while I appreciate all the work of officers, that in itself, there's an opportunity cost there. If you're working on reorganisation, there's only so many hours, even on an extended basis. So there's maybe a distraction element. As Councillor Edwards just said, who pays for this? What services will have to be cut to meet the actual direct cost? And finally, I think I haven't seen, and I asked about this recently, we've done a lot of work, and I think again on a cross-party basis, on our local plan. What's going to happen to our recent local plan and our about to be completed local plan? Finally, I would end with a plea in two parts, and this is absolutely non-partisan. I really do think the time has come. It won't directly, Graham, affect, if I call you Graham, I don't think it would directly affect parish councils, but by taking away the districts, there will be indirect consequences, surely in logic. So I would put forward a genuine plea that we finally have a town council for Braintree and Bocking, and that we look at ways to support our existing parish councils. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. May I call Mrs. Councillor Parker, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will be fairly brief. I just would like to, first of all, thank the leader for the opportunity to consider these proposals, these interim proposals this evening. I also to thank him for his offer that we will hold a further meeting like this, a full council, to consider the final proposal. I mean, obviously we are where we are with local government reorganisation. We don't have a choice, and we just must make the best of it. I can see from the interim proposal that has been put forward that quite rightly identifying the large amount of work that needs to be done to assess the evidence base. I think is completely right that we need to look at the evidence first before making any final decisions. I I think the issue of financial viability of councils will be very, very important. But I'm also very pleased to see in this document there's a great emphasis on the sense of place. Essex, as you know, is a very diverse, very, very diverse county. I mean, probably the most diverse, I should think, in the whole country. And to create councils which really reflect a residents' sense of place will be very important. And we obviously must all be putting the needs of residents right at the forefront of any final decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. May I call upon Councillor Finken?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm afraid I'm going to disagree with both Councillors Prime and Walsh. Our Labour government was elected with a mandate for change, and these plans are an important part of our mission to deliver on that promise. The government has grasped the nettle by planning a consistent model of local government for the whole of England after decades of dither and delay by both major parties. The present mishmash of local government arrangements in different parts of the country is not sustainable. I think we must also applaud the county councillors of various parties who have ensured that Essex is in the vanguard of devolution and local government reorganisation in this region. Thank you. We welcome the devolution of functions from central government to mayoral authorities. In other parts of the country, this arrangement has increased inward investment and employment opportunities and promoted growth. Without growth, we won't be able to afford the improvements in public services and support for local government services that we all want to achieve. Unitary authorities, which provide most statutory services, are also welcome. They're simple to understand and will potentially provide more integrated and efficient services. There are obviously risks in the plans as well. With the mayoral authority, it may seem remote from local people. It may seem less accountable to the electorate. And eventually the unitary councils will have the right to be represented on mayoral committees. But in the short term, that presents dangers, as by the time the unitary authorities are fully functional, arrangements may have been put in place which will be difficult to change. So in the negotiations preceding the implementation of the mayoral authorities, it will be important to mitigate these dangers by ensuring that there is effective representation by the unitary authorities and opportunities for extensive public engagement. I won't go into detail about the electoral implications of the unitary authorities, but I would just say that we in the Labour Party are supporting the creation of 5 unitary authorities, and we are putting forward proposals for the number of councillors for each ward and so on. So we'll be feeding those into the process. There are also risks in the perception by residents that the unitary authority will also be more remote than the current councils. And we think to mitigate this risk, we need to do several things. We need to ensure that there is a continued physical presence with area offices and the opportunity for face-to-face contact in each of the previous council areas. We should also establish area committees in each of the previous authorities, consisting of 24 or 27 unitary council elected voting members, open to attendance by members of the public. And also there needs to be more extensive and imaginative use of the internet and social media to keep in contact with residents throughout the unitary authority area. One area where I do agree with Councillor Walsh is on the position of town and parish councils. We feel that they should be given greater consideration than is given in the government's white paper. These councils are the authentic voices of local communities with proud traditions and a history of standing up for the interests of local people. Their contribution to the debate on the future local government's arrangements should be welcomed and valued, not denigrated. While there may be no major changes in their roles and functions in the short term, we should keep in mind that town and parish councils can often provide local services at a lower cost and with greater public accountability than larger authorities. And going back to the point about costs, there are going to be a lot fewer councillors, there are going to be a lot fewer officers. There are plenty of opportunities for making council services better integrated and more efficient and at lower cost. And obviously, they won't come automatically. We've got to work towards that. And I'm sure our leaders and our officers will be making sure that happens. And that's, you know, that's an important part of the process. So although there will be transitional costs, and I accept that might be additional to the existing costs, in the longer term, I think it could save council taxpayers money, and it could provide better services at less cost. And finally, yes, I do agree about the non-parished areas. I think there will be a strong case for making sure that the non-parished areas do have the opportunity to express their views on how to make sure that their voice is heard, and that needs to be included in the discussions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Finking. Councillor Holland. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to argue that we, as representatives of the demos, as the Greeks called it, of Essex, should press for effective democracy once local government reform has been implemented. I say this very aware of the long-standing trend towards increased technocracy in government. We are all part of representative democracy, a foundation stone of our civilization, and yet this foundation is currently under attack. This week we have seen the presentation of the Infrastructure and Planning Bill. Within it we see a proposed reduction in the democratic input into the making of decisions that have the potential to utterly change the character of our country, transferring more of such decision making to unelected people and organisations. The voice of the people is also to be stifled through a reduction in the ability of citizens to challenge decisions that affect them. The trajectory of these developments in decision making away from representatives of the demos to the unelected is therefore clear. I believe we elected members in this chamber should resist this trend by ensuring that we do not unwittingly support the trend by supporting local government reform. We have been privy to numerous letters from government on devolution and local government reform. They have been shared by the leader of the council and officers. I heartily commend that openness, as I do the fulsome amount of briefing material that has been presented to us on this subject. However, within the briefings we have heard, there is clear cause for concern. Amongst the slides presented to us was one indicating the potential structure of local government in a devolved Greater Essex with unitary authorities. The tier of local government missing from that slide was the parish level, as has just been spoken of. I feel that this is significant. We were later told that sorting out the representational democratic aspects of LGR and devolution would be a matter for the unitaries to sort out. I'm afraid I disagree. We should press for early work to identify what the reform of local government at parish level is required in order to preserve the effective transmission of the local voice to the new authorities. My expectation is that this, too, will be significant reform and should be thought through now. And now is the time to start thinking about all of the above. Before the September deadline, when we respond to government, we need to do this to ensure that the citizenry is adequately represented in sufficient numbers to facilitate locally influenced decision making on key issues such as planning. That means determining how many councillors should be should represent the demos based on an understanding of the councillor workload consequences of unitarisation, along with the impact of new legislation such as the aforementioned Infrastructure and Planning Bill. Determining the number of councillors needs to be based on the demands of the role. The councillor role has to be sustainable, manageable, effective, and importantly, acceptable regarding the demands made. Only by assuring that we are creating a workable solution to the democratic aspects of this reform will the role of the councillor be doable, meaningful and effective. This cannot be dealt with as an afterthought. Local democracy as an aspect of the reform process must not be kicked down the road and dealt with in a way that merely adds a democratic veneer to a technocratic body. We need to guard against growing authoritarianism. I believe we should make it clear that we, the elected, demand that local government remains genuinely democratically controlled. Why? Because the risk is that devolution, LGR, will simply make local government even more remote from the citizenry than it is now. The complete antithesis of what we're told this is all about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. May I call upon Councillor Bond?
Have I? I also know we can all get things wrong, can't we? I also know that it's important that we recognise that although there's nothing set in stone about what town and parish councils will do in the future, there is no doubt in my mind and that of many people that town and parish councils will find themselves taking on more responsibilities. I was very disappointed to hear at a recent conference lots of groans from people about the thought that that might happen, either because they don't want to work or because they don't trust the ability of town and parish councils to do that work, is to consider how we support town and parish councils to be fit for the future, to enable them to carry out those additional responsibilities. At the same time, I want to note how mega doesn't mean a lack of us approaching this in the civility that we've all signed up to in the future and working together as colleagues supporting our communities. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. May I call upon Mrs Mary Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've talked about the uncertainty of a change of this scale delivered at such pace, the impact it will have on staff and the need for strong local identity to be maintained. In the community's portfolio, I'm really clear of the need to be focused on both maintaining the reach of our service over the next 2 to 3 years, business as usual, whilst ensuring our excellent record and approach is embedded into a new service in a new organisation. We've acknowledged in the past that the pandemic was a time of great challenge and pain for our communities, but it was local government's finest hour, particularly the support given to residents and businesses. In the Braintree district, that support was enhanced thanks to the close connection of this council, its excellent officers and passionate members from all sides with residents. And since then, we have continued to be able to support our residents through other challenges as well. We have gone further with our community safety partnership, and it has long been held as a very good example in this county and continues to flourish. We mustn't let this unique relationship we have with our communities suffer. And at the same time, we must ensure that the resources and professional expertise remain in the sector to continue this quality of service and delivery in the future. More will be clear in September. How many unitary councils we'll have, who are we going to be with. But as we keep our local community approach, we need to make sure that this area of council service is given the appropriate attention in future planning of unitary councils. And it is the existing districts, such as ours, who have the expertise and the connections to design and plan these services in this time of great change. It is a challenge, but a great and exciting opportunity too, to create the service that keeps the talented and passionate officers in secure posts while making sure that their local knowledge and commitment and their close connection with our residents is maintained, albeit under a different organisational logo. I totally appreciate the challenges and the monetary implications of dismantling the major county services, but if we get this right locally, the value to all our residents is beyond monetary value, and particularly to the most vulnerable. And that, I am sure, will be at the forefront of our thinking and planning in the weeks ahead. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. May I call upon Councillor Diamond?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Braintree District Council is a brilliant organisation where councillors and officers alike work tirelessly for the good of the local community. However, our current arrangement, where responsibilities are split between Braintree District Council and Essex County Council, has created confusion and inefficiency. As a councillor for Braintree Central and Beccles Green, I have often found myself fielding casework that clearly falls under the jurisdiction of Essex County Council. I know many of my colleagues, both here and at a county level, have experienced the same predicament. We are, in effect, being held accountable for issues that lie beyond our direct control. This fragmentation is not just an administrative nuisance. It burdens our constituents as well. Residents shouldn't have to have a master's degree in politics just to determine which councillor to contact about a local problem. A single point of contact at a unified council would simplify this process immensely, allowing us to address issues more directly and efficiently. With one authority responsible for all local government services, we can eliminate the unnecessary bureaucratic maze that currently frustrates both the public and ourselves. I'm aware that change is never easy. Many of us, including myself, feel a deep sense of loss at the thought of this transformation, loss perhaps of familiar roles and long-standing relationships. Personally, the prospect of stepping away from my current role as a councillor is a really difficult one. However, for the broader benefit of Braintree and the entire Essex community, this change is not only necessary, it is a positive move towards a more coherent and responsible system of local governance. It will also mean that we have a representative, the new Mayor of Greater Essex, who will consistently have a voice in the heart of government, and even internationally. In transitioning to a unitary authority model, we'll take an important step towards a future where local government is simpler, more accessible, and unequivocally accountable. Let us embrace this change with the optimism and a shared commitment to the service of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Diamond. May I call upon Councillor Bowers?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think first of all, I'd like to commend the leader and the decision for this to come to full council tonight, having an extraordinary meeting. I think it's views that need to be aired, and I think so far it's been a good debate, and I expect that to continue. I think we should never lose sight of why we are here as elected representatives for our residents, and this is the one thing that we should always be mindful of. Whatever our views on devolution or local government reform, it should always come back to us serving our residents and what is best for our residents and our communities. We should also be proud of the record that we've had up until now in regards to our proud financial record, our prudent financial management over many years, how we've served our communities, what our frontline services provide. And many of us have been here numbers of years and seen many awards in this chamber for our staff that we are very proud of. But we also need to be mindful of the change that a local government reform, devolution can bring, and the sensitive nature that we need to be mindful of staff in this building, and the uncertainty that also brings. We also need to be mindful of, we are here to serve. The business as usual needs to continue. We need to provide them services, and up until this council potentially ceases to exist, which if this all comes to fruition will do, we still need to be providing them services up until that time. Also, during that time, if or when there is a new unitary authority, there will be a transition period where there will be officers and staff that need to be part of that authority before it actually comes into being on a vesting day, which means we potentially could lose good staff during that time while this council is still here. And we need to be mindful of that, not just the financial impact on that, but going back to the business as usual and the service delivery that we will not just be expected to, we are here to serve our residents with. And that's something that we should be bearing in mind. Now, I just want to touch on a few key points in regards to being responsible for finance and assets at this authority. And as it's referenced in tonight's report about the substantial cost in terms of preparing the smooth transition of duties to a new unitary council, and the council needing to consider any impact on its budget, resources and capacity. This would need to be balanced against the need to continue council service, as I just mentioned, on the business as usual basis, while delivering those key priorities and projects and continuing to do that. And also the significant uncertainty in financial planning over coming years introduce challenges in terms of the MTFS, including cost pressures, savings and investment, and not losing sight of when we all look at the immediate 26-27 year, when we've got already got a budget gap of close to 2.2 million. Now, I just wanted to bring a few key points to council tonight, what this could mean, just so we're all aware of some of the realities as we move forward with this. The disaggregation of Essex County Council and aggregation of current district, borough and city councils will be a complicated process, and joint financial planning will need to begin well in advance of the establishment of new authorities. Full details of the financial standing of any new authority cannot be modelled at this point, but financial assessments will be undertaken in the period up to the submission of the final proposals. In addition to the reform of the structures of local government, central government has also indicated that they are looking to reform local government finances. This may well introduce further complexity to the planning and establishment of new unitaries. It should be noted that once the shadow authority is in place, there are likely to be restrictions on the decision making of BDC regarding the disposal of assets and award of new contracts, as approval will be required from both BDC and shadow authority for these types of transactions over an agreed value. BDC is likely to be required to make a contribution to costs of transition ahead of the establishment of the new unitary. Currently, we do not know the value of our contribution, and we are not holding an earmarked reserve for this. Should it become necessary, the most likely source of funding will be our general balance, and any contribution would be made with approval in line with the requirements of the Constitution, which differ depending on the value. We are working with the Essex Procurement Partnership to ensure that we are properly considering the impact of local government reform on any contracts to be awarded in the period running up to transition. Contracts should continue to be let on the best terms available to the current organisations, and it is expected that some contracts will run over the transition period and into the operating period of the new unitary authority, as it would be operationally impossible for the new unitary to have a large number of procurements to be running in the first year of operation. Local government reform will introduce some new risks to BDC that will need to be managed through the transition period. This will be managed through our established risk management approach. And we continue to have a structural gap in our medium-term financial strategy and must continue to focus on closing that gap and addressing our current financial challenges. We need to continue to set a balanced budget whilst protecting the services for our residents and businesses for the intervening period, and to ensure that any successful organisation has a sound financial position to begin its operations. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. May I call upon Councillor Heath?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I should do my best not to repeat many of what has already been said. But there are a number of us here tonight who weren't here during the last administration and will not be here in the next one, wherever it may be. And so I therefore think it is vitally important that we work together to ensure that we obtain the best possible outcome for our residents, businesses, and importantly, our employees, many of whom will also be our residents. It is with this in mind that I fully endorse the opportunities, embrace the opportunities that devolution and local government bring to the table and to this district and county. The conclusion of the report on page 17, I think, sums up my feelings quite fully. And I agree with, as I said, nearly everything that's been said, and I've been crossing bits out so that I try not to repeat it. And I didn't think I'd ever see the day where I agree with 99% of what Jack said. so that's agreeable. But a lot has been said about town and parish councils as well, and I mean, most people here will know that I will fight with every breath for Whittam Town Council and for as long as I'm here. But in everything that I have read, there's never been an obvious threat against town and parish councils. And if you look, Manchester and Birmingham both still have their parish councils. And a report I read on the Tees Valley area devolution is that they have a number of issues that they have double devoluted, if that's such a word, down to their parishes to actually embrace and help them grow. So as I say, I endorse most of what's been said tonight, especially the time and effort that's been put in by everybody to get us to where we are tonight. And I look forward to Essex retaining the greatness it always has done throughout my lifetime. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. Councillor Recchi, your turn, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Again, like Councillor Heath, I'll try and not repeat too much what's already been spoken about tonight. I think it's really key that as we run through this process, we need to focus on positive outcomes. We need to position ourselves as a council to lead on the conversations, because if we don't and put ourselves in silent opposition, then we're just going to be told to and spoken to. And we can't let that happen. And this is the reason why. In the 12 years that I've been a councillor and in the many years before being a councillor, this council has positioned itself as an amazing council, a council that other councils look to, a council that during peer reviews other councils aspire to. We have an opportunity to champion those services as we go through this process. And what a legacy it would be if some of the blueprint for LGR is picked up directly from the services that we have maintained as a council. That, councillors, is true legacy. Also, we have a chance to showcase this during the discussions and during this process. And we can't pass up this opportunity. We have to be a part of it, because it will make us proud one day, I promise you. Even though if some of us here tonight aren't going to be chosen as part of that council group to take this forward, it will give us something to leave behind. A bit like Councillor Heath, I'll be quite sad, because I think if we do go through this process, it will mean that it will count me out as being a councillor in the future, and I've really loved being a councillor. Having a full-time job, I think, would probably discount me from being able to put myself forward. But it does give us the opportunity to have and put forward a good blended mix of young, enthusiastic councillors with great ideas, with experienced, seasoned councillors who have track record in delivering quality services here within the districts. It's been mentioned a few times. I am going to repeat it again because I think repetition for emphasis on this point is absolutely key. But as we go through this process, let's not forget some of our council officers. For some of them, this will be a true opportunity for a next step in career. For some of them, it will be a chance for them to diversify their careers and maybe step off out of being a council officer. But for some, as Councillor Butler mentioned, this will be affecting their livelihoods. So as we go through this process, let's absolutely remain compassionate and respectful of how that might affect other people. This isn't our livelihoods as such. Our impact here is around representing our wards, who we are duly elected to represent. And also, as it's been mentioned, we can't take our eye off the day-to-day service delivery that we do so well. And I know that council officers are absolutely committed into doing this as well as their usual day jobs. We have a busy year ahead of us. We can't give up on that. And lastly, just to pick up on a comment that Councillor Bond made about making Essex great again, and the current President of the USA, I'll just give a quote of a previous President of the USA who, if it had been around a bit longer, would have probably done some great things for America. John F. Kennedy: change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Well said.
Thank you, Councillor Ricky. May I call upon Councillor Hooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been some great debates tonight and some great things, and I probably will echo some of this. But I can see some benefits in removing a tier of local government. Many residents struggle to understand which tier is responsible for what. And as a district councillor, I often find myself contacted about highways issues, redirecting concerns and liaising with colleagues. There'll be two men over there that have receipt of my emails quite often. But a unitary system where one councillor handles all issues could simplify this process for residents, making it clearer for them so they know who to approach. But as district councillors, we are deeply connected to our communities. We know our residents personally, we are approachable and we are accessible. My concern is that in a large unitary authority, this vital local representation will be lost. Like many of my colleagues, I stood for election because I wanted to support our residents at ground level. That focus on local voices and local needs must remain at the heart of any decision going forward. Another key concern, and it's been mentioned, is our relationships with parish councils, which must remain strong and manageable. The role of non-political parishes should not be overlooked, nor should they be a dumping ground for responsibilities that the unitary authorities choose not to take on. At a recent event in London, I spoke with the chair of the National Association of Local Councils, who shared his concerns about the unparished areas of Essex. While most of our district is parished, we know that Braintree and Bocking are not. And perhaps now it is the time to address this. Forming a Braintree Town, I've got music, forming a Braintree Town Council to ensure the town is represented, maintained and protected in the same way as Halstead, Witham and our villages. This transition must be about improving governance for our residents, not just about administrative restructuring. Local identity and representation must not be sacrificed in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hooks. May I call upon Councillor Van Dolken?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A few months ago, I was very taken by something that my colleague, Councillor Mary Cunningham, said about the potential loss of communities, of connection with communities, which has been built up over the years and is so important. That struck a chord with me, and I felt if everything was done from, let us say, Colchester, to name one town, that much of that could be lost and never recovered. I went and looked into what other what other unitaries have done, and one of them is Wiltshire, which has the magic number of 500,000 people by chance, and they have 18 what they call area boards. Warwickshire has a similar thing, they call them community forums, but essentially, and I quote, each of these area boards is delegated with powers and devolved budgets to facilitate community action at a local level. They include city, town and local councils, i.e. parish councils, the voluntary sector, police and fire, and many more, businesses, etc. And I feel that is a very interesting area to look at for a unitary. The question of parish councils, I've been involved with parish council for many years as a member and more recently as a district councillor. And one of them in particular is very small. It has trouble getting members, keeping members. Most of you who deal with parishes will know this. And I am a little bit worried at the potential for a lot of responsibility to be given potentially to small organisations which will not have the gravitas of a district council or indeed a town council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dolken. May I call upon Councillor Wright?
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this very brief because most of what I was going to say has been said. I think that the children's services should be remained as an integrated service and then delivered locally through the unitary authorities. I'm also concerned at the estimated cost of between 5 and 7.5 million to cover these changes, when it is costing BDC 4.8 just to improve the bin collections. I think this will be many more millions which will be picked up by the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Billy Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm very surprised and disappointed with all this pessimism. I actually find myself on the same page as Councillor Finken and Councillor Diamond. I'm really excited about what the future holds for local government reorganisation, and I fully endorse the Labour government's proposals here. They do have a very clear mandate to deliver devolution and local government reform, and may I remind members on this side of the chamber that it was a Conservative priority as well from the Cameron government onwards. So I'm excited, and I have fully support it. I think we shouldn't be worried about the loss of identity. The Local Government Act of 1972 abolished 5 councils in this area and created Braintree Council, and we still have some members of Whittam Town Council, Councillor Barlow, who still talks about the urban district council, and he's very fond of it, and perhaps one day people will be very fond of Braintree District Council. But look, the background to this was shared services. In 2010 we saw that in London and across Essex, and we saw economies of scale with councils working together. And what this is a progression of previous rounds of local government reorganisation. So let's work to amalgamate and consolidate some of our services, and there are tremendous benefits to it. Let's streamline the governance of these councils by removing layers of government. For example, if you take the Templars estate, the courts in Whittam, we have patches of land, public land, that's owned by Essex County Council, by Eastlight and by Braintree District Council, and no one knows which organisation owns which piece of land. And I know Councillor Heath has referred to some examples in Whittam Southwold as well. By removing a tier of government, you actually streamline the services that are provided. Newland Street, Councillor Cunningham and Councillor Ritchie have worked extremely hard to unlock some of the refurbishments. But we've been stuck in this deadlock between the county and the district council. Why? We don't know. But if you remove a tier of government, like you see in the London boroughs and some other unitary authorities, these problems don't exist. We turn around town centre regeneration programmes extremely quickly. I think if you look at highways, again, get rid of NEP. What a ridiculous organisation. You know, you can literally, in these new unitary organisations, have proper highways committees. Members can, you know, from double yellow lines to roundabouts to junction improvements, councillors in this room would have the ability to make such suggestions. Waste, we collect the waste, Essex disposes of it. What a ridiculous situation. Get rid of it, streamline the service. So yeah, I'm all for it. In terms of the town and parish areas, councillors, don't be worried about services. I think we can actually beef up the services of town and parish councils in these larger unitaries. Why don't we say that town and parish councils could deal with the micro issues and the unitaries deal with the macro issues? You know, you could have a bush that falls on across the pavement, blocks the pavement. The parish and town could be very responsive and deal with that issue quickly. And I think there are some examples in Whittam where that's happened with the town council. So we could actually provide more funding and more powers to the town and parish councils. So that's something that should be considered. Something that no one's touched on is the boundaries of these new unitary councils. I don't care if it's 3, 4 or 5. I'd go for 5 if that works. But, you know, one of the things we've seen so far is Brentwood, Chelmsford and Malden. What a ridiculous boundary. You know, we can have Tolsbury and Wycombe Bishops in the same council as Hutton and Brentwood that abuts the M25, even though Wycombe Bishops has a CM8 postcode and is more aligned probably to Whittam, unless anyone tells me otherwise. So, you know, we shouldn't just rush this and just go with the current boundaries of local councils. Why don't we have some nips and tucks and deal with some of these issues where we can bring communities together, like Felsted. You know, that's in Uttlesford, but it's quite close to the Braintree council area, but could be lumped in with Epping and Harlow. So we do need to look at that. I'm also extremely excited with local government reform and devolution in terms of the potential for growth. And Councillor Tom Cunningham has touched on this before in terms of strategic infrastructure with airports and ports and our highways. And I raised these questions with the late, great James Brokenshire and with Andy Street, the former mayor of the West Midlands. You talk about internal economic growth across the country. We could have, could we set our own business rates? Could we retain all of our business rates? Could we set our own council tax? And could we see competition? If an Amazon factory wants to invest somewhere and our business rates are cheaper in our area compared to, say, Hartlepool, that would create some internal competition. So I think there's tremendous opportunities with this, and I'm extremely excited. So yeah, I'll be voting for it, and I wish it all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Staines.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why are English councils and English MPs so accepting of an inferior devolution for England when compared with Scotland and Wales? Essex needs its young people to stay and flourish here. English Devo could get them more involved and invested. Will English councils together ask the UK government to give the vote to 16-year-olds like Scotland and Wales? This Devo process, propped up by First Past the Post, is enabling decisions affecting millions of people to be made for them, but without them. Across Essex, Conservatives hold 3 councils, Labour have 3, Independents have 2, Lib Dems have 1, and there are 5 coalitions, plus the city and town councils. If higher resident engagement in local matters is really wanted, then this English devolution is the opportunity to fix the current underrepresentative voting system. Will English councils together ask the UK government to adopt proportional representation models as used in Scotland and Wales? Governing proportionally is also shown to increase engagement in local matters and requires political groups to work together. Will English councils together ask the UK Council to adopt proportional committee governance models as used by Scottish and Welsh councils? The 2+2+1+3 GECA voting model is not fair and underrepresents Essex County residents, and this could also be challenging in the new English Mayoral Council. Will English councils together ask the UK government for consistency with their UK nations and require the establishment of a real English Assembly within the UK Constitution, like Scotland and Wales? I sincerely hope all the priority councils are planning to meet together to shape and inform an English council's response to the UK government's English devolution plans. Another key area affecting us all is the English-wide development and resources, and the team that will be necessary to develop and support them consistently. And potentially the local government association offer could help us do that, to support new unitary members step up to their new roles, whether they're in the evening or in the day. A committee approach will better share the burden and support residents sustainably and enable us to act well with parishes. A coordinated approach will give priority councils and those that follow a strong voice to address the bigger questions not asked by the UK government in their sly divide and rule devolution approach, which offers England and her residents far less than UK citizens in Scotland and Wales. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Staines. Councillor Toby Williams.
Madam Chairman, we've heard the claim repeated tonight that local government reform will somehow lead to less accountability, less democracy. I think, seen in the context of the current system, that claim I think is incredible, frankly. How many of us have stood on a doorstep, knocked on a door, started speaking to a local resident, asked them about their issues and concerns, and they've turned around to us and say, actually, yes, there is a problem. Down the road from here, there's a pothole that hasn't been filled in. And then you have to go through the whole rigmarole of explaining that there are multiple councillors sitting on multiple layers of government, and whilst I can't help because I'm a district councillor rather than a county councillor, I can point you in the direction of someone who might be able to help. And by the time you get to the end, you can see this person's eyes glaze over because they've been completely detached from what you've said, and as a result, detached from the local democratic process, which is such a shame to see. And I can remember when I was first elected as a councillor a couple of years ago, one of my early pieces of casework was about a drain in the middle of Whittam that was blocked. And I asked a councillor who was more experienced than me, who's in charge of drainage? And the answer was, well, it is county that's in charge of drainage, but because it's autumn and there are leaves on the road, it might be something to do with the quality of sweeping. And of course, sweeping sits with the district council. So this was a drain that was looked after by two different layers of government. It was the most governed drain in England, and I still couldn't get it unblocked. And if we're really being honest with ourselves, if we were started from scratch, if we had a blank piece of paper in front of us, is this how we would design local government in Essex? Of course it isn't, because frankly, as has been touched on by Councillor Taylor, Councillor Diamond as well, it's a bureaucratic mess. It's opaque, it's arbitrary, it's illogical, and it is the current system that I'm afraid that is causing a crisis in accountability and a crisis in democratic control, not reform. And of course we can't blame residents for not knowing who to hold to account for individual problems when they have an MP, they have multiple district councillors, they have a county councillor, they have a police, fire and crime commissioner, and Lord knows what else. And this, tonight, this is our chance, I believe, to increase accountability, to enhance democracy through streamlining local government in Essex. And of course, we do have options. We can either snipe from the sideline and have something imposed on us, or we can be creative, we can work together, we can pull together, and we can help to create something that I believe is better for the residents of our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Abbott, may I call upon you, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For me, this is about two things in headline terms, which is democracy and the quality of local services. Quite a few people have mentioned highways. Well, actually, having knocked on probably as many doors as anyone here, members of the public don't care really who fixes the pothole, it's whether the pothole's fixed. And that's what I'm going to come on to in terms of whether this process is actually going to improve local services or not. There have been some fantastic contributions tonight. I particularly found myself agreeing with two contributions from the Conservative backbench. That's probably the last time that's going to happen, but keep it going if you're going to be that forthright in the future. To date, there's been a democratic deficit in this process. Essex leaders, and members might remember I asked questions about this at full councils at the end of last year, had obviously been working on this behind closed doors and moving this process forwards. But it's only tonight, in March, when the document's ready to be sent to government, that we've had any say. And that's simply not been good enough. Reading the comments of the leader of Essex County Council, Kevin Bentley, I thought I could see a familiar tale of jam tomorrow rhetoric. The reality for many residents is that they are concerned about the state of the roads, the footways, the reduction in local policing and access to services. So the question is, will all of this change make that better? Now, there are going to be strategic powers for this new Essex mayor. There's one person I hope doesn't run for it from a Clacton direction, but we'll have to see about that. But it's those day-to-day issues that people are concerned about. And as many have mentioned, we have the issue of the parish and town councils. Will they be empowered to do more? Will they have the resources to do it? Having been in this game for quite a long time, not as long as some, but for quite a long time, we've seen actually services become more centralised. You look at Witham, for example. Fantastic town council, but it's lost its magistrates' court. It's lost its police station. It's lost its council office. It doesn't have a local hospital. These are all major issues for a town that's growing fast. And from the Labour government's perspective, I see this as a very urban-focused agenda. Good luck to Andy Burnham. I know Manchester very well. Some of my family that I married my wife to come from that direction, been there many, many times. But urban Manchester is not rural Braintree district. The priorities are completely different. And then we have the government and their bizarre take on the planning system, that it needs to be opened up more to developers, and we need to get rid of regulations because nothing is being built. Have they been to Central Essex recently and seen that nothing is being built? And their urban focus, I'd say, is becoming actually quite extreme now in the way in which they're burdening farmers and reducing support for nature in our rural areas. Now, I'm sure it has not escaped the attention of senior councillors on this council as to what some residents are saying about this process, both in social media and in the local newspapers. And these are not my words, I should hasten to add, but they are the précis of a letter recently in the Braintree and Witham Times, that it's nice work if you can get it to cancel the elections, stay in power for another 3 years and keep the allowances. He was talking about senior members of Essex County Council. And I don't actually disagree with that comment. Removing the elections, which I don't think anyone else has spoken about yet tonight, was quite a serious move, and they haven't been postponed. They've been cancelled. They're not going to take place again. So this process also introduces uncertainties and costs. As some have said, we could be looking at a cost of up to £7.5 million, and that's just to get us to September, to the formal bid. That doesn't include the actual cost of reorganisation councils themselves. At a time when we need locally, nationally and internationally more stability, we've got more uncertainty and more costs. I don't think this process meets any of the tests for bringing decision-making closer to communities, other than the mayor, which could, yes, have some government powers handed down. But in terms of our level, I don't think it does do that. And the very people who met behind closed doors to decide all of this cannot now actually decide the shape of local government in Essex they want. Only 10 out of the 15 could agree what they want. So we don't know what the future is. Will it be 5? Will it be 4? Will it be 3? Will it be 2? Who knows? We only know that most members of this authority and their communities have had no real say to date, and that the majority of councillors in Essex will be removed from local government, and unfortunately some council staff will lose their jobs in what are perennially euphemistically called efficiencies. For what it's worth, and I think it's great that some councillors have expressed their opinion, I support 5 unitaries, purely because, given where we are, that is the least centralising option. But finally, whilst welcoming this discussion tonight, what are we actually deciding on? We have the paper here with 6 lines on it. I'm assuming we're going to have a vote, that's what some people have said, but I found myself looking at this list and saying, well, I can support 2 of them, I don't support 2 of the others, and I half support and don't support two of the further ones. It's very difficult to support something when there's such a huge amount of material on one recommendation. So what does the future look like? I don't know. I'm very pleased to see that we're going to have a further debate on this. But looking forward, I would caution members to think that this process is necessarily going to bring improvements to local communities in terms of services. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Mrs Bowles-Flint.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Councillor Taylor wins the prize for the biggest enthusiastic speech this evening. And I'm going to be nearly negative. It's basically the man on the street. All he worries about is his bins getting emptied and his potholes getting filled. And he doesn't care who does it, as long as somebody does it. If it's the same person, then it's better for them. There's only been one councillor mentioned something that is very dear to my heart, and that's children's services. And I'll just point out a few things to you members tonight that you need to be aware of when this is considered. Last year, the budget for children's services was £85 million. Adult social care was even higher. In tendering, they have the highest cost of adult social care and children care as well in that district. Essex do run the children's services separate to Southend and separate to Thurrock, and they have totally different ways of working their children's services. Essex had the lowest number of children in care in the country at the lowest cost of children in care. Bear that in mind. So last year's children's services was heading for a £14.2 million overspend. And out of that £14.2 million, £12.4 million of that was for emergency cares and for where they're placed. And that is what causes the children's services to be overspent all the time, is children's placements. Because if you have a child produced to you on a Friday that needs to go in care and needs more than one-to-one care, and that costs £20,000 a week, then you have got no choice, but you have to pay that, and that's how you get overspent. Children's services and adult social care are a massive thing that councillors in this room, most of them, have not had anything to do with, and they're not aware of everything that it involves, because in children's care, most of it is legal anyway. You've got no choice to have to do it, so you have to do it. So I just would like to point those things out, that this is the kind of decisions that you're going to make. Now, if you wanted my own personal opinion, I think that children's care should be organised from one point rather than however many different points. We at the moment in Essex have got one executive director of children's care who is mustard. I will say that, and I know Councillor Bond will agree with me. She is the best. Now, if we have to have 5 of her, one, it's going to cost a lot of money, and if we have to have 5 of everything else, it's going to cost a lot more money. So there is a cost to all of this, and it's one that we all need to be aware of something that we don't always talk about or have anything to do. Because I would put my hands up, when I first became a county councillor, I wasn't aware of all this neither. And when you get to the nitty-gritty of it and the bottom of all of these things like this, and adult social care, there is a lot of cost and a lot of work involved. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowles-Flint. May I call upon Councillor Hayes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the benefits of speaking at last is a lot of my points have already been taken, so I won't keep you for too long. But I speak tonight fully in support of local government reform. As the leader discussed in the opening speech, there is a lot of challenges and tight deadlines coming up, and we know the staff here and other councils across the county will be bearing the brunt of all that extra work. So thanks to all the work they're going to be doing. But I believe there's a lot of benefits to this proposal. Again, I'm going to pretty much copy Councillor Diamond's speech here and Councillor Williams, but this change must end up with local government being much easier for people to interact with. You know, when Whitton Town Council puts out a help leaflet at the end on the back with what services you contact which councillor for, and then not put all the names on. People don't know where to go. People don't know what you do, and as you say, they glaze over by the time you've explained the system to them. I agree with Leader what the opposition said. A lot of the issues, there's loads of issues with this. There's going to be massive changes to childcare, highways, all across the district. But by being one of the early adopters of this system, we can actually put in some of the good stuff that we do and actually kind of shape the future of this instead of being told at a later date, this is what is going to happen. Because the government have got a mandate to change it, and I support that. As I say, for me, I support local government reform, and I want to see a smaller, simple government that delivers for local people, and it's easier for them to interact with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. Councillor Conningham, having reserved the right to speak, would you like to speak now, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I won't add a great deal more than has already been said in what's been another very good quality and well-conducted debate in the real spirit, understanding the concerns but the opportunities, and I hope the webcast of tonight may well be reflected upon in the years in the future, and maybe other local authorities may contrast the quality of conversation we've had from all sides here at Braintree, and I think the Braintree comparison will be a very favourable one. I just wanted to reflect on a couple of issues, particularly relating to my portfolio here at Braintree. Colleagues will forgive me if I resist the temptation to respond to the points about the highway services. As you appreciate, I'm accountable to that in another place. But regarding Braintree District Council issues, as you know, we've been going through, and we touched upon this in our budget debate and some of the questions at our last meeting, we're going through the process of our transformation, which is in the process of being switched to obviously focus on the new surroundings we find ourselves in regarding local government reform. But what I did want to give an assurance that through our processes, we are committed to be working with others to ensure the good quality service design. I think that was what was really very encouraging from all sides. Councillor Beavis reflected upon it in her opening comments. I know Councillor Finken talked about the integrated local services providing value. I think Councillor Mary Cunningham reflected upon it as well in terms of that community cohesion. That is where I think a lot of our work in the next couple of years, a couple of very intense years, and that is where our united purpose and must really prevail in terms of ensuring there's an unswerving commitment to policy ambition in this area, designing those quality services and helping shape those quality services for the future, not for the benefit of a structure, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, but actually always keeping in mind it's the resident that's important here. And I think we must demonstrate that policy ambition. And with that in mind, we, as Braintree District Council, will be one of many partners on that. Very, very pleased that the approach of the County Council, who are an equitable partner in terms of a seat round the table, but I appreciate in terms of the size of their organisation and resource to support this work, they are a slightly inequitable partner, and a certain reliance will be required on their resource as well as the additional resource that's levered in from central government to deliver this work, but to work on those design principles to unlock the creativity and the purpose of our officers, and we need to give them the political direction to ensure they can do that without being inhibited in any way whatsoever. And I think that's the approach we'll also embed in our day-to-day process, particularly around human resource performance management. We reference the importance of staff in terms of their business as usual and making sure current priorities are delivered. But what we want to do is in terms of our HR appraisal process, performance management process, ensuring that the focus on service design is embedded in that process. So business as usual with one eye on the future. Just in terms of a couple of the points, I'm not quite sure I share Councillor Staines' high ambition for a Scottish-type devolution system. I mean, whether it's a political thing, but sadly a system that has allowed perhaps the best education system in the United Kingdom to fall rapidly, growing health inequalities, slumbering economy, and the rise of nationalism. I don't necessarily think that should be the blueprint for English devolution. But I think the approach where we have been frustrated in certain parts of certain shires under successive governments have not been able to unlock the great opportunities in terms of infrastructure, economic development, productivity. I think what we have now is not just a mayoral model that will come with money, and we always want more money, but it will come with money, but their decision-making, competences and ability to link things together. And of course, we've also mentioned the benefits of unitarisation, simplifying things simplifying everything. A lot of work we appreciate to do before the end of September, but I think based on the conversation we've had today and hopefully a measure of agreement, we can move on positively, but giving the assurance that the organisation is doing everything it can to prepare for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Butland, as the proposer, would you like to reply to the speeches before I put the recommendation to the vote?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't think I've ever been so proud to be a leader of a council as I am tonight. I think the contributions have been absolutely superb from all corners of the chamber, some of which I've agreed with, some of which I haven't. But I think anyone watching this tonight, in comparison to, I'm one of these sad people who've watched a few other debates around, this has been really superb, and I think every member of this council can feel proud of the contributions that they have made. And actually we've had nearly, I think, 24 or 25 speakers tonight. That's half the membership. And I think that has been really excellent. There are clearly a number of themes which I've taken on board. The issue around town and parish councils clearly is something we need to get in. Councillor Mrs Beavis has said, you know, will the elections in 2027 take place? To the best of my knowledge, they will, unless someone knows better. But there doesn't appear to me to be any reason why they would not take place, probably at the same time as the new unitary elections would take place. The issue which has been raised, a number of people, Councillor Walsh and Councillor Hooks, about Braintree and Bocking, town councils. Don't forget, there's more than Braintree and Bocking. There's the whole of the city of Colchester. There's the whole of the city of Chelmsford. There's Clacton. You know, Basildon, I don't think, has a town council. So when we're looking at it, I say we, I won't be there. When unitaries are looking at it, it's going to be more than just Braintree and Bocking. And I think I'm right. I'm going to look sideways to our monitoring officer. You can't force town and parish councils onto areas that don't want it. Right. Why I say that is, we have a little bit in Great Notley ward, which is not parished. It's the old, what's the name of the...
Queenborough Lane.
Sorry?
Queenborough Lane.
Yeah, Queenborough Lane, and a little bit round there. I think we've tried 3, maybe 4 times to encourage them to become part of Great Notley Parish Council. And on 3 and 4 times we have been told in no uncertain terms, we do not want to have a parish council. We do not want to pay the extra £19 or whatever a year for it. So, so there's more thought that can be given. You can't just say, want it. We have, and I think both parties, certainly the Labour group and ourselves, I don't think I've ever had a huge demand or any demand from people in Braintree and Bocking for a town or parish council. Now that might well change, of course, if the opportunity to devolve real decision making down, and I can't see how that will not have to happen. I cannot see that you can't, for the places like Colchester and Chelmsford and Clacton and that they won't want to have something there. But that is for the next stage from where we are now. So doesn't affect at the moment, but more than, as I say, probably will do. The sense of place, I think, is very important, and the point that also Councillor Mrs Cunningham picked up about communities and how we keep that is extremely important and will need to be done. Councillor Taylor talked about, we've had a go at this before. You didn't go back quite far enough. Can I just say, on the first Thursday in May 1970, I got elected as a city councillor in Plymouth at the age of 21, while still, I have to say, at university in the Midlands. I was absolutely delighted. You go in and you sign the book and all of this, and this is great. And I always remember late, well, he's no longer around because he must have been 60, 70 in those days, Labour councillor called Fred Kelland, who said, "Don't get too excited, boy, we're going to be done away tomorrow." And that was as a result of the Ratcliffe Maud report. Now, that was 50-odd years ago, and really very little has changed apart from a little bit of tinkering. And those, Madam Chairman, who have listened or read Michael Heseltine's report, he says the biggest mistake he made was not moving faster on local government reform towards mayoral systems, etc. And don't forget, from a local position, what this Prime Minister has said is that he wants, Labour Party want, a mayoral system throughout the country, probably somewhere in the region of 38 mayors, and those mayors are going to sit with the leaders of the other countries at the national level. And if you talk to people like Councillor Bentley, the leader of Braintree, leader of Essex County Council, for him to get to see a minister, he might have to write 3 or 4 times. Mayors pick up the phone and ring. And that's about real power. So I think, I mean, I'm a great believer. You know, I'm absolutely committed to real local government. I think there are issues that have been raised. I've got some real concerns about the fact that we have members here who are teachers who make a huge contribution. And I personally think it'd be wrong that they should be barred from sitting on it because we've now, you know, we might have one. I think really got to look at that we don't turn down that. I think we do have to look, we will have to look at what makes it convenient. I'm not sure, Councillor Edwards, that all the wisdom is in with the under-30s. But there is wisdom in the under-30s, and we want younger people in, he says, as one who is, you know, a little bit older than 30. I've been really pleased with the debate. Contracts was raised. There will be contracts that inevitably will go on way past vesting day, and it will take time. I mean, I've heard figures of in places that have done it 5-10 years before you're actually able to do those things. It's not simply going to be a case of, let's assume it's the first of vesting day is 1st of April 2028, that suddenly the whole world changes in terms of that, because that certainly will not be the case. So I'm grateful for, and the issue about planning, which Councillor Abbott and certainly Councillor Holland raised, you know, that's also going to be impacted upon stuff which is coming down from the government about the change in the way in which, you know, whether we like it or not, you know, this is an elected government. We can't say we like democracy when it suits us and we don't like it when it doesn't suit us. And the government have made, a fully elected government, have said they want to change the planning system whereby more, as I understand it, and I bow to my colleague beside me about all the things, of the concerns of members here. I don't think it's fair to say we haven't involved members, because all of everything that's come to me from ministers' letters, I have sent out the same night to colleagues. There have been briefing sessions, not just here, but also on screen to all councillors in Essex as well. And we've had very little time. Bear in mind the 16th of December was when the white paper was issued, which isn't very long ago, and take Christmas out. So we have done our best to involve, but you can't have, in my view, I think I've worked out there are 737 councillor positions. Some were dual-hatted, so it may not be that in total, county and district councillors across Essex. And you can't have it all in the same room. You have to have, that's why we have leaders, whether you like them or not. You know, someone has to take that role. I think we've done our best as leaders to, and each organisation, each council has done it its own way to keep people informed. And all I can do is to give a commitment through you, Madam Chairman, that we will continue that between now and the submission in September to government. I doubt very much whether in September I will be stood here absolutely elated that everything that's going to government is exactly what I wanted. It ain't going to happen, I don't think. But if we focus on the main thing of as long as there is enhancement of the role of government, we are the most centralised government in the world, basically. A little bit worried about how much, going back in the NHS, going back to ministers today is actually, I think, going in the wrong direction. But, we do want to ensure that local government, and I think all people here were saying, that local element, how we want to do it. It's going to be a lot to work through. I'm very grateful and I'm very proud of this debate tonight from members, which I think has covered the feelings and concerns that many of us have. I am not honestly sure that those feelings are out there with the people. I don't think, personally, many of them give a damn. That may be their fault. They want the services delivered. They don't care who's going to do it. And they do find it frustrating ringing someone was saying, Madam Chairman, I ring I think it was Anne, she gets a lot, I know, but and the 133 bus recently has been a wonderful example of who's doing it. Anyway, thank you very much for that. I would ask that you support the paper tonight so that I can move forward with the other 14 leaders so we can move to the next stage, because this is actually about what Councillor Bond was saying about making Essex. We're a really great county and we need to be in a position that we already contribute more to the National Exchequer than many other areas. We need to be great there, and we need to have the Mayor and unitary councils who can do that. It's about getting employment, it's about our education for our children, it's about skills. All of that, I think, will benefit from local government reform. And I'm prepared to accept some of the things I don't want, because I think it's looking further ahead to the major achievements that we can get. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Thank you, members. The recommendations are set out.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for your indulgence. I just wanted to just make I think it is just a quick point of order and maybe a general misunderstanding. On our side, we did ask this evening whether there was going to be a vote, and we were told there wasn't. Our understanding was that you, as a leader, were going to reflect on the quality of the debate this evening and take that back. Looking at the recommendations, our group don't feel that we can support every single recommendation, so are minded to abstain, but that doesn't take away anything that we feel we've added to the debate this evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, members. The recommendations as...
Can I say I accept that in the spirit in which it's given. As long as you're not saying, Graham, you're not to touch this at all, then I'm happy, and I can accept that in the spirit in which it was given. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, members. All in favour of the recommendations, please indicate with the show of hands. Thank you. Thank you, members. All those against the recommendations, please indicate. Any abstentions? Thank you, members. We are all in favour. The recommendations have been approved. Members, this item concludes the business for this extraordinary meeting of full council this evening. Before I bring this meeting to a close, please may I remind members that the next council meeting is the AGM, and it is being held on Monday the 28th of April 2025 at 7:15. Thank you all for your attendance this evening and enthusiastic participation in this evening's meeting. It's been a real joy to listen to you all. And to those watching on the BBC, the council's... I take that back. The council's YouTube channel. The recording of this meeting will be published on the council's YouTube channel as soon as possible. I will now formally close this meeting of the full council. Thank you, everybody, for attending and your anticipation.